Hello, I am Ryan.
Hello, I am Amy. Welcome to Listen to English Podcasts. Today's episode is I can understand English, but I can't speak.
Have you ever been listening to someone speaking English, like maybe even a podcast like this one, and you
Oh,
understand everything completely, and then when it's your turn to speak, you just freeze up?
yeah.
Not alone, right?
Yeah.
This is like a surprisingly common experience for English language learners. But today, we're going to look at this phenomenon and give you some practical tips to unlock your speaking potential.
That's right, Ryan. It appears that a lot of English learners can comprehend spoken and written English pretty well, but they have a really hard time expressing themselves verbally. They understand the concepts and the vocabulary and the grammar, but when it comes to actually producing spoken language, they hit a wall. There's this sense of frustration of being so close to fluency, but still feeling held back by something that's kind of intangible.
It's like you have all the ingredients for a delicious cake, but you can't seem to put them together and bake it right. Like, you know what you want to say, the ideas are there,
Yeah.
but getting them out in a clear and coherent way feels like this monumental task.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy, Ryan. One of the main reasons for this disconnect between understanding and speaking is the difference between passive and active learning. When we listen to English, we're mainly engaging in passive learning. We absorb the language and we pick up patterns, but we don't actually have to produce it ourselves. It's kind of like watching a professional soccer player dribble the ball. We can observe the technique, but we're not practicing those skills ourselves.
Absolutely. So listening to podcasts and watching movies, even reading books, it's all passive.
Yeah.
So it's like being a spectator in the language arena, watching the game unfold, but not actually participating.
Yeah.
But speaking, that's where we actually step onto the field and we put those skills to the test.
Exactly. Speaking requires active learning. It needs you to be retrieving vocabulary, and you have to be constructing grammatically correct sentences and then coordinating your pronunciation all in real time. It's really a complex process that involves a lot of different cognitive functions, and studies show that active recall, the process of actively retrieving information from memory, is way more effective for long-term learning than just passively absorbing information. And that's why speaking practice is absolutely crucial for developing fluency.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like learning to play a musical instrument. You can listen to all the concerts in the world, but until you pick up the instrument and start practicing, you won't develop the muscle memory and the coordination that you need to actually play well.
Yeah.
So just listening to English isn't enough.
No.
We have to actively engage with the language to make it our own.
Right. Another thing that often contributes to this I can understand but I can't speak thing is the fear of making mistakes. It appears that a lot of learners are so worried about saying something incorrect or being judged for their pronunciation or grammar that they kind of hesitate to speak at all.
This fear factor is definitely real, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like standing on the edge of a diving board knowing you need to jump, but you just feel paralyzed by the fear of making a splash.
Yeah.
It's that apprehension of not sounding perfect, of being perceived as incompetent, that holds us back.
Yes. And it's totally understandable to feel that way because no one enjoys being judged or ridiculed. But the truth is, mistakes are a totally inevitable part of the learning process. They're actually essential for growth. If you think of a baby learning to walk, they stumble and they fall, but they get back up and keep trying. And eventually they master the skill. Language learning is very much the same. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and to refine our understanding and to improve our skills.
So it's about embracing those stumbles as stepping stones, accepting that we won't be perfect overnight, but every imperfect attempt brings us closer to fluency.
Absolutely. Shifting our mindset from perfection to progress is key. So instead of focusing on avoiding errors, we need to embrace them as valuable learning experiences. It's about celebrating the small wins, those moments where we successfully use a new word or we construct a complex sentence.
It's about giving ourselves permission to be learners, to be works in progress, and to find joy in that process of becoming more fluent. But how do we overcome that initial hurdle? How do we push past that fear and start speaking more confidently?
That's a great question, Ryan, and that's what we'll explore in the next part of our podcast. We'll talk about some practical techniques and exercises that can help you overcome your fear of speaking and build your confidence and really unlock your speaking potential.
So we talked about why understanding doesn't automatically mean you can speak and how fear can be this huge roadblock. But now let's get to the practical side. What are some actual strategies we can use to break free from this I understand but can't speak cycle?
Well, one really effective technique, and it's surprisingly simple, is called shadowing. Have you ever noticed how musicians often learn by imitating their idols, like playing along to their favorite songs? Shadowing is really similar. You find some audio or video material in English that you like something with clear pronunciation and engaging content, and you try to mimic the speaker as closely as possible.
So it's like you become the speaker's shadow,
Yeah.
mirroring their rhythm and intonation and pronunciation. That sounds like a pretty fun way to practice. Does it matter what kind of material we use for shadowing?
Not really, as long as you find it engaging and the speaker's voice is clear and easy to understand. It could be a podcast like this one, an audiobook, a TED Talk, or even a scene from like your favorite movie.
Mm.
The key is to choose material that you enjoy and that you can really connect with emotionally, because that'll make the practice more enjoyable and more effective.
That makes sense. It appears that if we're really engrossed in the content, we're more likely to pay attention to the nuances of pronunciation and intonation instead of just focusing on the words themselves. So how exactly do we do shadowing? Do we just repeat what we hear?
Yeah, basically, you listen to a short segment, maybe a sentence or two, and then you repeat it out loud, trying to match the speaker's pace and pronunciation as closely as possible. And you want to focus on imitating not just the individual words, but also the overall flow and the rhythm of their speech.
It's like becoming an actor, almost taking on the role of the speaker and really embodying their voice. It seems like shadowing could also help with intonation, that elusive musicality of English that can be so tough to master.
Exactly. It's a great way to train your ear to pick up on those subtle nuances of English intonation and rhythm. You're essentially training your vocal muscles to produce the sounds and the patterns of natural fluent speech.
Shadowing sounds like a fantastic way to practice, like on the go. What about practicing at home when we have a bit more time? You mentioned earlier the idea of talking to ourselves, which I have to admit initially sounded a little bit strange.
Yeah, I get it. But talking to yourself in English can be really helpful. It's a safe space to just experiment with language, to try out new words and phrases without feeling self-conscious. Imagine you're a chef in your kitchen and you're trying out a new recipe and you're experimenting with the different flavors and adjusting the seasoning till it's just right. Talking to yourself in English is kind of like that.
So it's like our own personal language laboratory where we can be as creative and as experimental as we like. So what kind of things can we talk about?
Anything, really. You could describe your surroundings, you could recount your day plan, your upcoming week, or even just like debate both sides of a current event.
Whoa.
The point is to think in English, to verbalize your thoughts and ideas, even if it's just to yourself.
So instead of just mentally running through my to-do list, I could actually say it out loud, like, okay, first I need to go to the grocery store, and then I need to pick up the dry cleaning,
Yeah.
and after that I need to call my mom.
Exactly. By verbalizing your thoughts, you're activating your vocabulary and you're practicing sentence construction and you're developing fluency in this low-pressure environment. You basically become your own conversation partner.
It's like having a built-in language tutor available 204/7. What other techniques can help us build fluency and confidence?
Another really good practice is to incorporate visual prompts into your speaking routine. Find a picture or an image that interests you. It could be a photograph, a painting, even a comic strip, and just describe it in as much detail as you can.
I like this idea. It's like bringing those English words to life, connecting them to something tangible and visually stimulating. Do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, describing pictures sounds like a really good way to activate our vocabulary and just practice speaking in a more creative way. And it takes the pressure off having to like think of topics on the spot and forces us to think on our feet, which is so essential for real-life conversations. Do you have any other suggestions for like incorporating these visual prompts into our practice routine?
Yeah, definitely another really effective technique is using picture sequences or comic strips. So instead of just describing a single image, you can narrate a story based on a series of pictures, and this can help you to practice sequencing events and using transition words and just developing a more coherent narrative.
It's like creating our own little mini-movies in our minds, complete with dialogue and sound effects. That sounds fun and like a really great way to stretch our imaginations. What other techniques can help us overcome that fear of speaking and build our confidence?
One strategy that can be really helpful is to record yourself speaking English. You can use the voice recorder on your phone or like just a simple audio recording app. Choose a topic that you're interested in, set a timer for a few minutes, and then just talk.
I see how that would be beneficial, but honestly, the thought of listening to my own voice speaking English makes me cringe a little bit.
Yeah.
Isn't that a bit awkward?
It might feel weird at first, but it's a really good tool for self-assessment. So when we listen back to ourselves objectively, we can identify those areas where we need to improve, like pronunciation or grammar or fluency. It appears that listening to our recordings can help us become more aware of our strengths and weaknesses, which can then help us to target our practice more effectively.
That makes sense. It's like having a coach who can pinpoint our weaknesses and then help us like develop a personalized training plan. So it's not about striving for perfection. It's about identifying those areas where we can make like small but significant improvements over time.
Exactly. And remember, practice makes progress. The more you speak, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. And don't be afraid to experiment with different techniques and find what works best for you and just make it a part of your daily routine.
It's like any skill, right? The more we practice, the better we get. And it's also about finding joy in that journey and embracing those moments of awkwardness and imperfection as stepping stones to fluency.
Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are on this path to unlocking their English speaking potential?
Yeah, I'd say believe in yourself and believe in your ability to learn. You've already come so far by understanding English. Now it's time to unleash your voice and share your unique perspective with the world. Remember, speaking English is not just about mastering grammar and vocabulary. It's about connecting with other people and expressing your ideas and sharing your story.
Beautifully said. So to all of our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep learning, and never give up on your dream of speaking English fluently and confidently.
And remember, we're here to support you on your journey. Thanks for joining us today. This was the Listen to English podcast. Tune in next time for more insights and tips on mastering the English language.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow and reach more English learners like you. By subscribing, you'll never miss a new episode, and by liking the video, you're letting us know you want more helpful content. Thank you for your support. It means so much to us.